And this is not investing, this is gambling. Investing in real estate has become super popular in the last few years, especially as people make serious bank when it comes to their real estate investments. But that has a lot of people wondering whether or not they should be investing in real estate. And while real estate can be one of the best vehicles for getting a return on your money, it also isn't for everybody, and you have to make sure that your timing is right. And to be clear, timing isn't just about what's going on in the market, but it's also about whether it's the right time for you. And in this video, we're going to discuss everything you need to know about when you should be jumping into the market and when you shouldn't be. But before we get into it, my name is Nolan Matthias, and if you want to thrive financially, this is the place for you. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And if you are looking at getting into the real estate market, you probably want to know how to get the best mortgage rate. And this book, my new one, Mortgage Secrets, gives you all the info you need on that. So go to mortgagesecrets.ca to get yours. Okay, so let's discuss all the reasons why you shouldn't invest in real estate. And part of this is going to have to do with things that you should be looking for in the market. And part of these are the things that you should be looking for in your own financial situation to determine if you're in the right place to be buying a rental property. And for the most part, if you're going to be investing in real estate, you need a perfect storm. You need almost every single one of these items to be in your favor before you do so. Because for each one of these items that I'm about to talk about that aren't in your favor, your risk goes up significantly. And part of making great investments is about making sure that you make investments that have good returns, but also where you minimize your risk. Because if there's one thing that we can learn from people like Warren Buffett, it's that the people who make the most wealth over the longest term are the ones who are able to minimize their losses as opposed to those who are able to beat the market. So let's talk about why you shouldn't be investing in real estate. So first and foremost, if you can't break even on a property or better, you probably shouldn't be buying that property. Yes, there's some arguments to be made for the fact that you're paying down the debt and that's adding to your net worth. But at the end of the day, this is an investment, and investments are not something that you should be subsidizing. So when you go to purchase your real estate investments, make sure that you're at least break even or better. And make sure that you account for everything like condo fees, taxes, heating, vacancy, and anything that could possibly go wrong with the property over the time that you own it. You need to build in allowances for all of those extra costs that could come up somewhere down the road. It's not simply enough to do the calculations and say, okay, this much money is going out and this much money is coming in and I'm good. You need to account for the other things that could pop up in the future. Now, on that same line of thinking with respect to rents, you also want to make sure that the rents in your market aren't falling. Because if you find yourself in a situation where you bought a rental property in a market where rents are falling, you could end up in a situation where a property is break even or maybe cash flowing, and then all of a sudden 6 months to a year later, you're having to subsidize it. And this happened to me in 2014 when I bought a property. The rents were about $1,500 and that more than covered my costs, but about 12 months later, I couldn't get more than $1,050 for the exact same property. And if I would have known what I know now, I would have known to look at those rents to see if they were falling, because at the time that I bought the property, they were in fact falling. And it just so happens that I bought a property that was in the middle of the lease. The seller saw the writing on the wall that they weren't going to be able to lease it for the same amount that they were leasing it for before. And they offloaded it to me, the sucker, who ended up with a property a year or two later that I had to subsidize in order to make sure that all the mortgage payments were still being made. Now, one thing that you can look at to sort of determine where rents are going to go is net migration. Because the third reason you shouldn't be buying an investment property is if the property that you're buying is in a market where net migration is negative. So in other words, more people are leaving the market than coming into the market. Because obviously if people are leaving, this will create vacancies, and vacancies lead to lower rents. And lower rents obviously will have an effect on your ability to get a return from your investment. Now that leads us to the fourth stat that you want to be paying attention to, and that is vacancies. You want to make sure that vacancies are not rising. I remember distinctly saving one couple hundreds of thousands of dollars when they were looking at a property next to a university in Calgary. At the time, there were 4 massive towers being built that were being sold as residential properties. But what I could see coming down the road was that undoubtedly these properties were being bought in order to be rented out to university students. Now, at that time, there were low vacancies, and people who were renting out properties to university students were doing very, very well. But as soon as those buildings came online and there was a massive amount of units available to rent, the vacancies went up in the area, the rents went down, and a lot of people were struggling even to get people to rent those properties. So you want to be keeping an eye not only on vacancies, but also new construction, because if there's significant amounts of new construction around where you're buying, there is a good chance that there's going to be more rental units that come online, especially if there are purpose-built rental buildings being built, and that can have a huge effect on your investment. Now, the fifth thing that you want to be watching out for is employment rates. or more specifically, unemployment rates. If unemployment rates are rising in your market, that could be an indication that rents are about to suffer. And it could also be an indication that net migration is about to turn negative, because markets where it is hard to get a job tend to be markets where people are leaving. And that's not good for you if you own an investment property. Now, shifting from the market stats that you need to be looking at and looking at more your personal situation, there are certain things that you want to make sure that you aren't doing before you purchase a rental property. So first and foremost, you want to make sure that you aren't borrowing the money for the down payment. A lot of people think it's a great idea to go and refinance their property, pull some money out, and use that to purchase more property. And while I think this is probably okay if you're refinancing an existing rental property, I'm very wary of refinancing your existing home, the one that you live in order to purchase rental properties. The reason why is because the mortgage on the property that you want to live in is the first one that you want to have paid down, because once you have that mortgage paid off, your risk goes down significantly. Your chances of not being able to make your mortgage payments and the chances of you going into foreclosure on any of the properties go down substantially as soon as you have your owner-occupied property paid off. And in addition to that, your owner-occupied property is the one that doesn't have the tax advantage if you're in Canada. So you want to make sure that that is the one that gets paid off before all of the others, because the investment properties obviously have a tax advantage from the perspective that the interest and the cost on those properties can be written off. Now, in addition to not borrowing your down payment from your owner-occupied property, the seventh thing that you want to make sure that you aren't doing is buying property if you don't have extensive liquid assets available to you outside of real estate. I'm a big believer in diversifying your portfolio, and one of the mistakes that we see people make when they're investing in real estate is putting all of their eggs into the real estate basket. And I'm a firm believer that you need to have a significant amount of non-real estate assets, so stocks, bonds, those types of things, available to you just in case something should go wrong. And most importantly, you want these assets to be liquid. So in other words, if you need to sell them in order to make a mortgage payment, you want to have the ability to do that. So for us, we try to keep as much money in stocks and bonds and different other investments as possible in order to make sure that we're protected from the inevitable fluctuations in the real estate market. Now, last but not least, the last thing that you need to avoid is buying property for appreciation only. Any investment you make in real estate should start earning an income. So an income, in other words, is rents. If you're purchasing a property only with the hopes it's going to go up in value, then you're doing it wrong. Appreciation is the bonus in real estate. What you're buying when you're buying real estate is the income producing asset that will help replace your income somewhere down the road. And when you buy only with the hope of having appreciation, so in other words, flipping properties or buying pre-construction, well, that is a huge mistake because that increases your risk substantially. And there are a lot of people who have been burnt buying pre-construction properties as an investment when in reality what they were doing was speculating on the market in hopes that the market would go up. And this is not investing, this is gambling. At least with doing something like a flip, you're taking a property that's undervalued, you're adding to it and creating value, and then you have at least some chance of creating certainty around having a profit. But with pre-construction, you're literally at the whims of the market. It is a bad idea. And if you want to know more about purchasing pre-construction properties and why you shouldn't do it, make sure you check out this video right here.